Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of the Sabbath Stones, alongside in the co-captain's chair, Mr. Chris Alo. What's going on, my friend?
What's going on, Pete? How's it going? Thanks for having me as always.
It's going. It's going. It's time to talk Sabbath again. It's a new
Yep.
month, man.
I can't believe it's already been a month. I'm like, holy crap. How did that happen? How are we in May?
I.
Who hit the fast forward button?
It was just Christmas.
I was just gonna say Christmas was like a week ago, right? I still have presents that I haven't even put away yet.
Is your tree still up?
No, that's down. That's down.
Yeah, we left our tree up for a while because we bought a fake tree, so you can leave that up
Oh yeah.
as you like now,
We
right?
do we do fake too. Yeah, it's
Oh
just
yeah,
easier.
we've always done the real thing, and man, it's like
Get
my
the
wife's
needles
always like,
everywhere and yeah.
oh, needles everywhere, and that tree is dead by Christmas because we put ours
Oh
up
yeah.
right after Thanksgiving, and that thing is like falling apart by the time Christmas rolls around. So this was cool because it just like it was fine. It looked
Yeah,
like
you
brand
you
new.
get
It's like, all
you
right,
get to it when you get to it.
yeah, no big deal, no big deal. So today for this episode, Chris first of all is going to go into a little bit of Sabbath in the news, and there's not really much right now. It's been pretty quiet on the Sabbath camp, but Chris has a little bit of info, and then we're going to talk about. We're going to put on our time travel hats, so to speak, right? We've talked about this before on the channel, and specifically about Sabbath. It's like, wouldn't it be cool for some of us who maybe weren't quite old enough to be able to go back to specific tours or shows to go see our favorite band at a time where we really weren't able to, or maybe it's a tour that we were able to, but we just missed it somehow, right? So we've left it kind of open to for discussion to talk about, what we would have liked to experience. But before we do that, Chris has some Sabbath in the news.
Yeah. There's not a ton, but we'll just go over what there is. Probably the biggest news story for Sabbath related is still the Back to the Beginning show, and more news keeps trickling out. A couple days ago, Lizzie Hale from Hailstorm let loose in an interview. She said that Tom Morello, who's the director of this whole thing, asked her to do. She wanted to perform "Close Your Eyes Forever." Which was going to be a duet with herself and Ozzy, which is pretty interesting. And she was saying how she was honored that she was the only woman invited to be on the show, which I think is cool. They probably should have had more ladies on the show anyway.
I'm sure
But
Lita Ford
then
was not invited.
and that's exactly where I was going, Pete. I'm like, well, wait. If the Osbournes mended fences with the Butlers and Jakey Lee and Rudy Sarzo, why the fuck couldn't they talk to Lita Ford and just have the real thing, have Lita Ford there? I mean, Craig Kaminsky and I saw Lita Ford last year in concert. She was fucking amazing. So, you could have had two ladies. You could still have Lizzie Hale do something and have Lita Ford. So I
Just
thought
keep her
that
and
was
Tony apart. Just keep her and
yeah,
Tony apart. That's all.
that's all. That's true. That's a good point. And who knows? Maybe it's not the Osbournes. Maybe it's Tony going, look, I don't want my ex being on there. And she did say in his book that, Tony smacked her around a couple years ago when her book came out. So who knows? I wasn't even thinking that angle, but you could be totally right.
Yeah. I don't know. You would think
But I
after
thought,
all this time that they'd be like,
right. Yeah. They broke up 40 years ago. Like, all right,
is
you
that what we go,
got
Keith?
to get over it at some point. Along those lines, this was a big bomb that was dropped just the other day. Sammy Hagar did an interview, and he said that Tom Morello asked him what song he wanted to do, and Sammy said he wanted to do "No More Tears." So he said, "Okay, great." And then apparently Tom Morello got back to him a couple days later and said, "Oh, Ozzy's going to do 5 solo songs at the gig, and one of them is going to be No More Tears. So pick something else." So then Sammy said, "Oh, okay. Well, how about I do Flying High again?" And since it seems like everybody's doing 2 songs, he goes, "I'll do an old song of mine." He's going to do a cover of the Montrose song "Rock Candy," because
Okay.
he figured, okay, that's kind of in the same era as early Sabbath, which I thought was cool. But I'm like, okay. I'm like, did Sammy let this out on purpose? Or was he directed by Sharon to let this loose? Because sure enough, within a day or two of this news story breaking, today, TheGuardian.com had an article saying that they did an interview with Ozzy, which is going to, and I think the other Sabbath guys as well. but I know it specifically said with Ozzy, and it said how Ozzy's been training and trying to get in shape, and it said this interview will publish tomorrow, May 2nd, and Ozzy is going to have more details on his involvement in the show. So
Hmm.
I thought that was interesting timing.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens with that, right?
Yep. Speaking of ladies, there's a band I never heard of. I only heard this one cover, but I liked it. It was just posted on YouTube. A band called Spiral Spikes. It's a female fronted band. They're on some label called AOP Records. Never heard of them before, but they did a really cool cover of Born Again, of all songs, and that just went up on YouTube a few days ago. It came up on my YouTube page, and I watched it. I really thought it was quite good, so everybody should check that out. Spiral Spikes, covering Born Again. And also, speaking of YouTube, there's a great YouTube channel called The Tapes Archive, and they do documentaries on music, particular albums and tours. And they came onto my radar. They did a bunch of really good, really in-depth, detailed mini documentaries on Van Halen. And like, on the 1984 album and tour, and the Diver Down album and tour. And just a couple days ago, these guys dropped a 75-minute documentary on the entire history of Volume 4. And it is well worth watching. I 100% recommend it. I watched it once already, loved it, and I'm going to go back and watch it again.
Yeah, I know you sent me
Um,
the link. I need to carve out some time and check that out.
yeah,
I
I
love that
mean,
album. So
the guys that did it, I think they're professional video editors, because man, the amount of work that they did with all these different audio and video sources and cutting them together and having voiceovers. I mean, it's fun, informative, and also funny at the same time. I mean, I laughed out loud a few times. I don't want to give any jokes away. But it's definitely worth checking out. So it's the YouTube poster is The Tapes Archive, and it's the title is Black Sabbath Volume 4 Documentary, and Volume 4 is spelt VOL period with the number 4, and a great documentary. I would definitely recommend it.
yeah, definitely.
When I watched it, the only nitpick which I had to send to the creators, and they understood, was they quite a few times talk about Sabbath's hometown of Birmingham, but every time they
Birmingham.
say it, they kept saying Birmingham. And I was like, listen, man, I'm American too. I didn't know until I fucking flew there to see Sabbath that it's Birmingham, not Birmingham. Although, if you spend enough time watching interviews with Tony,
You
and
would know that, right?
you'll pick it up eventually. But
Yeah.
yeah, but if that's the only criticism I have in a 75-minute documentary, they really did something good. So yeah, check that out.
Cool.
But that's pretty much it, Pete. I mean, everything, I know a lot of people are asking, well, when are we getting that Born Again remix? And when are we getting this? It's like, guys, everything is on full stop until the Back to the Beginning concert is over. And I would imagine there'll be other things. Oh, the other thing I did forget, shit, and I had it in my other notebook, was Ozzy Osbourne just signed this big licensing deal that's going to premiere, of course, at Back to the Beginning. And there's all these products now that they're going to come out with related to Ozzy and Sabbath. And I'm like, okay, well, there's your cash in. If Back to the Beginning is truly, to donate to different charities, there's
Got to
your
make their
cash
money
in right
somehow,
there.
right? Got to pay,
100%.
got to pay for all those airline tickets that they're splurging
Absolutely.
on hotels and things.
Absolutely. So that was the other bit of news. But again, yeah, there's nothing going to be coming out, I would think, until after that show.
Yeah.
Still no word if there's going to be any kind of pay-per-view or live streaming event, but there's still time. It's only May 1st.
Yeah, we
The
should
event's not
know
till
fairly soon. I would think sometime in June they would
That's
announce
what I
it.
would say.
Yeah,
I would say I bet you if they're going to do it, probably a month out, similar to what they do with sporting events, we'll start hearing something.
I don't know if you noticed it, and God, I can't even remember who he was interviewing. I saw like on YouTube, Tony like doing a sit down interview with some other guitar player. I can't even remember who it was now. And I'm like, I guess he's doing that shit now. And I'm kind of thinking, God, 2 years ago when I was like hot and heavy to get Tony on the show, I remember his good buddy Bevan, I had him on for an interview, and he was like, I'm gonna talk to Tony. I'm gonna do what I gotta do to see if he can come on the show, but he doesn't really like doing like video things and all that sort of stuff. And now he's all over the place. I'm like,
Yeah, but I didn't watch it, but I saved into my YouTube saved list to go back and watch that. Yeah, there was like four people on screen, right? And Tony was one of them.
yeah, yeah. So I forget who the other people, but anyway, maybe one of these days.
Yeah, hey, never say never.
Yeah. So 3 shows from Sabbath's past or present or recent past or way way back that we would have liked to have been at, and the reasons why. So I'll have Chris kick us off with his first time travel selection.
Okay, sure. Yeah, this one was an easy one, and if you don't like this topic, I'm sorry. This one was my fault. Pete was saying, "Well, let's come up with something kind of simple to do for this episode," and I'm like, "Oh, my favorite topic is always time machine shows, and man, if we had a time machine, what would we, what shows would we go back to in time to see?" And I know I had my number one and number two, no problem. But then I thought I had my number three, and then I was like, ooh. And I didn't want to pull a Rich Catino and have a tie because I thought about it. Because, yeah, my number three was going to be the Born Again tour. But, I've been on a real Ray Gillen kick the last couple months. I've picked up quite a few bootlegs of Sabbath on the Seven Star Tour. Now, the beginning of the Seven Star Tour was a mess, of course, with
Oh,
Glenn
yeah.
Hughes. But after I think it's 6 or 7 shows, Ray Gillen took over, and man, listening Pete to these bootlegs, it's amazing how good I think Ray Gillen vocally really was.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I just love the set list. So my pick, if I could pick any show, it's the last night of the Seven Star Tour. So this is in Nottingham, England, on June 4th, 1986. And I did pick up. I had it on a cassette years back, but I did pick up a double CD of it, and this is it right here. The title is, Jesus, I'm so old. I got to use glasses for everything. Last Gig with Ray. And this is on the Zodiac label for anybody that's looking for it. It's a double CD. And yeah, the set list is pretty amazing. Again, I think Ray Gillen just had an incredible voice. I was able to see him once live on tour with Badlands a couple years later. But so here's the set list: Mob Rules, Children of the Sea, Danger Zone, which was the new one from Seven Star, War Pigs, Heart Like a Wheel. Then they did a medley, which is Symptom of the Universe, Sweet Leaf, and Zero the Hero, Sphinx the Guardian, Seven Star, Turn to Stone, a drum solo, Die Young, the song Black Sabbath, a bass solo, NIB, Neon Nights, Heaven and Hell, a guitar solo, Back into Heaven and Hell, and an encore of Paranoid. And actually, the last track on here is quite unique because it's Tony Iommi talks to the audience. Since it was the last night of the tour, yeah, Tony says a few words and thanks
That never
everybody.
happens, right? Yeah.
And just despite the disaster that the U.S. Seventh Star tour was. The audience goes fucking nuts for Sabbath on this gig. And, again, there's no video, but judging by the audio, man, they were incredible. Just top form that night. They did shoot, and I talked to Tony Iommi about this a couple days before this. I think it was June 1st and 2nd. So right before this gig, they filmed with cameras Black Sabbath on this tour at the Hammersmith Odeon. And the idea was to do a home VHS tape, but then, shortly after, within a couple months, once Ray Gillen left, that went out the window. So there is footage which we'll probably never see. But man, I think they were just really tight despite the mess of the tour that happened. And I think Ray Gillen was a great singer, and it's a shame he didn't last longer with Sabbath. So that's my number 3.
Yeah, we've talked about it before. It's like, what if, right? What
Yeah,
if he had stayed with them, and then you don't get some of the Tony Martin stuff, you don't get Badlands, right? But
right.
would it have been worth it, right? To give up those for that.
It's a tough one. And it's a whole butterfly effect, right? Who knows what would have happened, but
Yeah.
yeah, and the crazy thing is, yeah, I wasn't when Sabbath played on the Seven Star tour. It was only my first concert was September of '86, which was Ozzy Osbourne, but I wasn't going to concerts yet. And when they played the Meadowlands, I know you were there. That was Glenn Hughes, which was a disaster. And then a week later, they played Nassau Coliseum, but that one was Ray Gillen. But of course, there's no internet in 1986. There's no news, so there was no way of finding out unless you had some kind of inside track. There was no way of knowing you were going to get different singers at 2 different shows.
I don't think I found out that he was sacked till the next issue of Kerrang came out,
Exactly.
which was like a month later, right? Because I didn't go to Nassau Coliseum show, but I remember being
Right.
at Meadowlands and I was thinking, what is up with Glenn Hughes tonight? God, he sounds terrible.
Terrible.
And
Yeah.
he looked weird up there, and just the whole show was uncomfortable.
Yeah. Mess.
Yeah. Because I was looking forward to it because I love the album and I
Yeah.
was a big Glenn Hughes fan. And I was like, oh, this is going to be great. And it was like, oof, what is going on here?
Crazy. But
Yeah,
yeah,
no good.
crazy stuff. But yeah, so that's my
I may have to
first
get that. How's the quality of that? Pretty good.
excellent for an audience recording. I have this one. This is the Sheffield one, and then I also have this one, which is confusing because it's the same cover. Oh, this one's Nottingham, right? This one is Sheffield, England, which is what's the date on this one? And they're both really good. I'd have to put them back to back. This is May. This one's May 21st, and this one's June 4th. And in between, they also did the Hammersmith Odeon, which I have. That one is on this CD, which is Hammersmith 1986. And part of that was also on the reissue of Seven Star. But the sound quality is pretty bad on this one. But yeah, there's a ton of Ray Gillen stuff. I'd love to eventually have, because he only did like 20 something gigs with Sabbath. I'd love to have, as many of them as possible.
I may have to have you take pictures of that and just text them over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get it further. Cool. All right, my first choice. I'm going to go back to April 6, 1974. Black Sabbath's appearance at the California Jam at the Ontario Music Speedway in Ontario, California, for a couple of reasons. I mean, we've seen the footage. I have, CDs of the performance and whatnot, and I think it was a really good performance by them. But to be there in person, to experience that whole day, and more specifically, my two favorite bands of all time, both playing a couple hours from each other at the same festival, I think would have been totally awesome. The footage of it's just so weird. I mean, have we ever seen footage of Sabbath at an outdoor event or any event where they're playing in the middle of the day? It's kind of weird when
It's
you
pretty
watch it,
rare.
but I thought they sounded great that day. And that was probably, what was that? Was that the Sabotage tour or was that the Sabbath Bloody Sabbath
I
tour?
believe it was Sabbath Bloody Sabbath.
Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. So, you get some tracks that they played live there. They didn't really do a lot going forward, which I think was really cool. You could totally tell by the footage that that was in the middle of their cocaine days because they looked fired up and
Oh
rolled
yeah.
all over the place and big smiles on their faces. Well, you're playing in front of a couple 100,000 people, but I'm sure it had more to do with the white stuff than it had to do with the people in the audience. But yeah, it would have been totally cool to see that show and also to see Purple later on that night because that was a great, great, great show for Purple as well with Coverdale and Hughes. Speaking of Glenn Hughes again,
Yeah.
and to me, it's always been like one of these legendary shows. There were other bands that played that day. What the Eagles played and
I
Emerson,
think Rare Earth
Rare Earth
played.
played, and Earth, Wind and Fire, and
Yeah.
whatever. But uh,
Oh, and Seals and
Hills of
Croft.
Croft, yeah. So kind of a strange bill when you think about it, but the two mighty bands, and I'm sure ELP were really,
Oh,
really
and ELP. That's right. I forgot about them.
because they were like the co-headliners, right? There was that whole big
Right.
battle of who's going to go on last, right?
Yes.
So, but yeah, I would love to say again. You almost feel like you were there because we've had the video of it forever and we've got the audio for it. But I think it just would have been really cool to be there in the audience and experience that. But I was only 8 years old at the time, so it wasn't going to happen, and it was on the other side of the country. It wasn't going to happen. But if I could hop in my time machine, I would be there for the full day for sure.
That's a great pick, Pete. I didn't even think of that to do that one to also get in the purple gig. That is a good one.
Yeah, get two for one, right? Got to think big.
Yeah, no, that's
Two
true.
for one.
That is true.
All right, what's your next one?
All right, my next one is a show that we've talked about before, and I think, as far as I know, I think it's the single greatest set that the original lineup ever played. It's from August 5th, 1975, and it's from Asbury Park, New Jersey. I've had it on bootleg tape for years, and I have a CD of it somewhere, and it's also on the Sabotage box set. It is discs 2 and 3, and several of these songs were recorded and carried over to the Past Lives
Oh yeah.
set that came out a couple years ago. But I just think this is I think the best set that the original band ever did. 100 minutes long. Opened up with "Killing Yourself to Live," "Hole in the Sky," "Snow." I mean, right there, just the two songs alone opening up. Then "Killing Yourself to Live," "Hole in the Sky," "Snowblind," "Symptom of the Universe," "War Pigs," "Megalomania," "Sabracadabra," a guitar solo, a drum solo, "Supernaut," "Iron Man." The guitar solo continues, which includes excerpts from Orchid and Rock and Roll Doctor, then Black Sabbath, Spiral Architect, and then Children of the Grave and Paranoid. I mean,
Doesn't get much better than that, right?
right, for the original lineup, holy shit. I mean, that's incredible. And I don't need to hear anything off of Technical Ecstasy or Never Say Die. I mean, to me, that is the definitive legendary set from the original Sabbath.
That's why that full-blown Past Lives release that they put out however many years ago for me is like amazing
Yeah,
because it's got all that stuff, even though that's like culled from like two shows, but still it's like you're not going to get anywhere else all those great tunes in one spot like that.
yeah. I mean, just amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And it's when you look at it, it's like, oh man, I wish they could have done. I mean, I know you and I both saw them, quite a few times on all the different reunion tours. I'm like, Jesus, I wish they could have done Sabracadabra and Killing Yourself to Live and Hole in the Sky. I mean, I'm sure Ozzy's voice couldn't handle it, but
Well,
man,
that's the thing because that's Ozzy doing this high pitched stuff, and he
right,
hasn't been able to do that in a long time.
long time.
Yeah.
Well, Christ, he could barely do it back then.
True, true. Yeah, that's amazing what he was doing in the studio around that time.
But hey, if we got time machines and magic and everything else,
Yeah.
you know,
Honestly, we don't even really, that time machine is really only taking us back in years because we can hop in the car and be in Asbury Park in just like what, 2 hours. So
For sure.
that's,
100%.
so we'll drive the 2 hours and just take that time machine back 50 years.
That's it.
That's it.
100%.
No big deal. No
We'll
big deal.
visit the beach while we're there too.
Yes, yes. And
Maybe
we'll go get
get
some
get
cotton candy and a couple
I was gonna say get
beers
some hot
and
dogs.
yeah, there you go. All right, my next one. Let's go back to October 18th, 1980. Uh, the Black and Blue tour at Madison Square Garden.
Nice.
Yeah, I really, really wish, I started seeing Sabbath on the next tour, and I'm just like, I really, really wish that I was just maybe a year older so I could have seen the Black and Blue tour because I think to see Sabbath, the first tour with Ronnie, Heaven and Hell, Blue Oyster Cult, they're moving off the Cultosaurus Erectus album and tour. I think that would have been absolutely amazing. And they've teased this for years about, official. I've never seen the film, right? And they need to officially release that once again and release the audio and let's just do a full-blown Black and Blue kind of looking back at the greatness of that, but it just never happens. Anyway, the set list is pretty indicative of the time, but I think it would have been great to have been there. War Pigs, Neon Knights, NIB, Children of the Sea, Sweet Leaf, Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell, Iron Man, guitar solo, Die Young, Paranoid, and Children of the Grave. So, and what I really think is cool is when Sabbath were doing Children of the Grave as their last song instead of Paranoid.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
absolutely.
makes it, I mean, I know everybody, Paranoid's like everybody's favorite song. It's got to be the last track, but I like it when a song like Children of the Grave ends the set. Boom, done, you know. So, but yeah, it would be great to be there in Madison Square Garden. Got to do the New York show, and I think it would have been great to see Blue Oyster Cult on a big stage like that because I've never seen Blue Oyster Cult in anything bigger than the Mid-Hudson Civic Center. So
Yeah,
I've
they
seen them in
did
clubs and smaller venues, but never at a big place like that.
the Garden and Nassau
Yep.
Coliseum
Yeah, like a week
on that.
apart, right?
Yep, on that run. And the Sabbath, if I remember right, Sabbath closed the
The night
Garden.
before, the night before at the Coliseum. So the
Yeah, and
17th.
BOC closed at Nassau. And Nassau was what they filmed
Filmed.
for the Black and Blue, which I can't believe you've never seen it, Pete. You got to come over to my house. I'll show you because I have it.
Yeah, I've never seen it. Never seen it, other than some clips here and there. And funny enough, the Madison Square Garden show apparently was the top grossing US show for that week
Wow.
across the entire country. Go figure.
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we'll ever see it.
Nah, probably not.
I mean, the DVD, I have the British DVD that was officially released and immediately withdrawn. And yeah, the story was that Tony Iommi is the one that's blocking the release. And
Gotta be something that he doesn't like.
when we did that video a couple of years back with Vinny Appice, he was the one, and I had never heard this story before, that nobody in Sabbath knew that there was a movie. And it was Sandy Pearlman told Sabbath as they were walking to the stage, and Tony was so mad that he hit their manager Sandy Pearlman that night on the way to the stage.
Wow.
That was the story that Vinny Appice told us when we did the on the Rock Fantasy Hour when we had Vinny Appice, which I had never heard that before. And interestingly enough, Vinny Appice had said on there that he's never seen it.
Wow. Okay, what does that tell you right there?
Yeah,
That thing is in Fort Knox right now.
and it's amazing. We'll have to do first off, I have to show you the movie. You have to watch it on my house. But second off, it's amazing that they recorded this and got it. They recorded it in October of 1980, and it was in movie theaters in December of 1980. The end of the year. It's unbelievable. I mean, there is a huge mistake in the movie that they left in, which blows my mind. I don't want to take us off course here, but you'll see when you see the movie. But it blows my mind. They did this huge, massive tour for months, and they filmed one gig, and that was it. And that was what they made the movie of. And George Harrison from the
Rushed it
Beatles
into the
was a
theaters.
producer.
It probably
Yeah,
wasn't ready for theaters yet, but they did it anyway. And then they're
yeah,
like, yeah, this needs some work. Yank it.
yeah. No, very little overdubs, I'm sure. But yeah, I will have to show you that for sure.
Cool. All right.
Yeah. All right. So my number one Time Machine concert for Black Sabbath, funny enough, is my number one Time Machine concert of all time. It's the I guess the excitement has worn off a little bit because over the years now, you know, I had never seen Sabbath with Dio when I first heard of this gig. Now I've seen him, obviously Ronnie's been going a long time, but I saw Sabbath 18 times, and I think other than one song, I saw them play most of this. But it's still, I would still love to see it. Oh, and here's the I had the tape for years. This is a double live CD that I got not that long ago. The title is Black Sabbath Turn Up the Mob Tour, which is the Coliseum in Quebec City, November 15th, 1981. It's a double CD audience recording, and this one, it's Jesus. Oh, this is on the Shades label. Shades 027 is the serial number, and this is the first night of the Mob Rules tour, which is a tour, of course, that Pete famously saw in 1982. But this was the opening night of the tour, and what makes this show so special, other than it being opening night of the tour, is that traditionally Sabbath for 90% of the tour of the Mob Rules tour, they would play three songs from the Mob Rules tour. I'm sorry, from the Mob Rules album. And for whatever reason, I'm assuming to test out audience reception on the opening night of the tour, they played six songs from the new record, The Mob Rules. So it's the longest set that they ever played on the Mob Rules tour. And the set list is pretty impressive. It's Neon Nights, NIB, Country Girl, Children of the Sea, Turn Up the Night, Black Sabbath, Voodoo, War Pigs, Iron Man, Slipping Away, a drum solo, Falling Off the Edge of the World, The Mob Rules, Paranoid, and Children of the Grave.
That's pretty good.
So that's a pretty impressive set. And of course, for the six Mob Rules tracks, these were the live debuts. This was the first time they ever played any of them live. And
Yeah,
interestingly enough,
Flipping Away was definitely not played at my show.
yeah, that interestingly enough, they did not do Sign of the Southern Cross, which was a song that became a staple
Yeah,
on the Mob Rules tour later on, and of course is on Live Evil. But I'll give up Sign of the Southern Cross if I get all these extra songs. So that's my number one Time Machine show.
that's pretty cool. And not a ton from Heaven and Hell, right? That's
Right. Well, just the three standards, which are Neon Nights, Children of the Sea, and Heaven and Hell. They, as far as I know, Die Young was never performed on the Mob Rules tour.
pretty cool. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's, not uncommon back then when bands had a new album out. They would do a good chunk of the album on the tour. Maybe not six songs, but you would get at least four, right? Most bands, if they had a new album to plug, that's what they were doing.
Right.
So, unlike nowadays, when you get these older bands, oh, we got a new album out. We're not going to play.
Everybody runs to the bathroom.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe we'll do one. I don't know this song. I'm going to take a leak. It's like, ugh,
Unless you're talking Iron Maiden, then you're getting six new ones, whether you like that record or not.
yeah, pretty much. All right, my final pick here today. I've been kind of going in chronological order here. So I know you were at this show. I was not. I don't know why I wasn't at this show because I certainly could have been. Um, but I'm thinking maybe that I might have been unemployed at the time. Maybe that was a reason why. I don't know. Or no, or maybe I just started a new job. I don't know. I was unemployed for a little bit during this year, but I don't. I don't. I think I was working at the time, so I didn't go. I was living up here, so I could have gone. Anyway, August 6th, 1992, Beacon Theater in New York
Oh
City,
yeah.
Dehumanizer tour. I did not see them on the Dehumanizer tour. I don't know why. Shame on me, right? Should have been, because I was totally stoked for the reunion. I bought the album, loved the album, and I just don't know why I didn't go. I honestly, up until they did the actual reunion tour later in the decade, I didn't see Sabbath at all during this decade. It's like I saw them a bunch of times in the 80s, a lot, afterwards, later on, but like for some reason in the 90s, I don't know why. Don't really know. But it was a great set. You got a bunch of new, there's a couple of old Sabbath classics, but it's mostly stuff from the Dio version of the band. Mob Rules, Computer God, Children of the Sea. Then you got War Pigs, then Time Machine, a little bit of Die Young, guitar solo, Orchid, Black Sabbath, Master of Insanity. After All the Dead, drum solo, Iron Man, Heaven and Hell, Neon Knights, and Paranoid. So there's Paranoid going back to the final song again. So pretty good set list. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that show because I'm sure it was amazing.
Yeah, that was a killer show. I saw Sabbath 5 times on the 1992 Dehumanizer tour. That one was great. I got, God, I think I had like third row. The Beacon was packed. If I remember right, they had Prong opened up on that one. Um, I was still am, a huge Danzig fan, and Danzig did like the first 7 dates. So the closest being Cleveland, Ohio. So me and a buddy drove to Cleveland to see Danzig with Sabbath in Ohio, and then came home. And then like a week later, 2 weeks later, maybe we went to the Beacon Theater. But it was awesome because I never thought I'd see Sabbath with Dio, crushingly heavy, very basic stage. I mean, they had next to nothing. They had like a
Basic
banner,
for you. Yeah, yeah.
and they had like, but even in, I also saw this tour twice in England, including at the Hammersmith Odeon, and they had like yellow ropes on the sides of the stage, I guess kind of looking like sort of like the album cover. There's some kind of banner or something, but very basic. They played great. The audience seemed to love it, and they did well enough on that first leg that they quickly added a second leg, and they came back to the Beacon Theater 2 months later in October of 1992. The only thing that was kind of a bummer was it was the same exact set list. They changed nothing.
And who
But yeah,
opened
they
up?
were great.
Who opened up for him later on?
On the October leg, it was a band called Skew Siskin from it was a female fronted act, and my buddy did yell something derogatory at them, which I don't want to say, but at the time it was funny. Pete, it was 35 years ago, so I was
I
allowed to
know.
laugh then.
And
But it
Exodus
was
too. Exodus also, right?
Yep, it was Skew Siskin and Exodus, who were excellent. And when I saw them in England, Testament opened up.
So interestingly enough, so after the Beacon Theater show, October 14th, 2 days later up in Albany, New York at the Palace, they added Motorhead to the bill.
Interesting.
And that appears to be the only show on the tour that Motorhead
I
appeared.
I would have loved to have seen that. But
Yep.
again, Pete, this is, you know, no internet. Like I went 5 times to Dehumanizer. But if we had the internet, I probably could have figured out, Albany's not that far. I would have went to Albany. Maybe I would have went to Philly or Boston. I went, but without having that information,
I never knew what was playing up in Albany. I never went to a show
same.
in Albany.
Pete, I lived in Westchester. I didn't even know what the fuck was playing at Poughkeepsie.
Yeah.
I would call the chance when I remembered. I would call them, but if you remember, now we're really off topic. I had to call them Sundays after midnight because of the rates. There were long distance rates because it would be a long message, and I would sit there with pen and paper and write down the gigs that sounded
Do
good.
you remember the old chance
That
messages?
was
The
it.
whole lineup of the whole like next week,
Yeah.
the whole next month, and you have to sit through the whole thing.
I used to call the Sundance in Long Island, Lemoore in Brooklyn, the Chance, because that was it. There was no Googling, figuring out who your favorite band is on the road and playing where. I mean, we lived in the dinosaur age,
Oh
man.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I never went up to Albany. I never even knew what was up there. I used to hear like God, what was the name of that? There was a rock club up in the Albany area that a lot of bands played at for many years. Ugh, I'm drawing a blank now. But other than that, like I never heard of any shows up there. I didn't know what was.
Right.
I think I went to see Metallica on the Black Tour up at the whatever it was called at the time, Pepsi Arena, or I don't know. It was called. It's been called
Right.
so many different things. I saw them up there, and I think I saw the Red Hot Chili Peppers at the college when my brother was going to school there, just to go. But like I,
Oh yeah.
Albany
I
to me was like another planet. I was like,
100%. I never went to Albany till a couple years back. I remember when I was a kid, my second concert was Metallica at on the Master of Puppets tour, and I went to the Capitol Theater in Passaic, New Jersey. And once we got the shirt, we went drove all the way out 90 minutes to Passaic, New Jersey. We saw the shirt they were playing at the Mid Hudson Civic Center in Poughkeepsie the next day, but we had no idea.
right.
Just one of those things like, oh boy, we could have saved an hour and 10 minutes of driving, but we didn't know.
Yeah, you either read the newspaper and saw an ad for it, or you listen to PDH all day long to, that hopefully they would mention
Right.
something, right? It just, God, how did we live without the internet back then? As much as
It,
the internet, a lot of the internet sucks, but
yes,
how did we like do all this stuff back then?
and that's for me when it comes to concerts and news and events, that's the one thing that it's always like, ah, yeah, the internet really did change the world. Because yeah, how'd you figure anything out back then?
Don't know. I don't know. Yeah, you hear about a concert late, like, oh shit, let me go to Ticketron and get tickets. Like, oh, that's been sold out for 2 weeks. I'm like, I only just
Right.
found out about it yesterday. Damn.
Exactly. I'm sure you remember when you used to go to Ticketmaster or Ticketron, they had like this little, it was like a little pamphlet, and you would open it up and it would have it would have the venue and who was playing where with the date.
Yep,
No other info,
that's it.
because you had to ask, oh, well, what tickets do you have? How much are the tickets? And
Yep. For folks who are listening who are a little bit younger and being like, you waited in line for tickets?
oh,
Like out in the cold? We would go like the night before. Like I remember waiting to get tickets for the Scorpions at like, I don't know, it was either Nassau Coliseum, the Garden, or Meadowlands. And I remember they went on sale like a Saturday morning, and it was in the middle of the winter, and we like got there at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and it was freezing out, and we were in Middletown outside of Sears because that's where the Ticketron outlet was. And I remember thinking, we were able to get tickets, but I was thinking this is
this
ridiculous.
sucks. Yeah,
It's
crazy.
totally ridiculous. And of course, we smuggle like bottles of booze and stuff there because you got to do something, keep yourself
Sure.
occupied with you in the middle of the fucking night and it's freezing cold, right? Because you're waiting for Scorpions tickets, like, and then the cops drive by, like, oh, what are you guys doing out here? Nothing. It's like,
Yeah,
what
it's
do
a
you think we're
different,
doing?
truly a different world.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. Another a lifetime ago. The sad thing, Chris,
Go
is
ahead.
that, we're sitting here laughing, telling these stories, but I'm just like sitting there thinking, God, in a couple of years, I won't even remember that Scorpion story anymore. I won't be able to
True.
tell it anymore. I'll be like,
Listen, we've probably forgotten more rock stories than most people know. So
that's the crazy thing, right? I remember these bursts of things, but I'm like, God, how much am I forgetting that like great stories that I'll never remember again to tell, It's like,
yeah, no, a lot of. For years, I have a buddy who's been like, "You got to write a book. You got to write a book," and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." Of course, I never did write a book, but I don't know if I'm ever gonna. But hopefully, I'll keep some of the memories around for a while longer. But hey, this show helps
oh, I
bringing
know.
back memories.
I like the idea of a book because it's like, got it. If you're even remotely interested in doing it, do it before you get too old.
Yeah,
Like you said, then you can't remember anything because then we're basically useless for it. So,
never
oh,
say never.
yeah, never say never. Never say die, Chris, right?
No, that record sucks. Sorry, guys that like that record. Pete and I still don't like it.
No, I'm not a fan. I was with Craig last weekend because we went to Keeler's thing, and I don't know. The Sabbath tribute band Into the Void were playing, and they played Never Say Die, and Craig turns to me and he goes, oh, one of my least favorite songs on the album. I'm like, it's one of the only ones I like. And he goes, oh, what other ones do you like? And I'm like, I'm sitting there struggling to mention anymore. He
Yeah,
goes, you like Johnny's Blade, right? I'm like, that's all right. He's like, what else? You probably like It's a Hard Road. I'm like, yeah, that's okay. And he started naming all these other ones. I'm like, no, not that. No, no,
yeah.
no, no. He goes, I like that album. I'm like, yeah, you're not going to convince me. And then Keeler,
No.
so he goes like, oh, Never Say Die is great. I'm like, yeah, I knew you'd say,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that love that record, but
yeah.
But hey, listen, having said that, if they had done a 4 disc box set of Never Say Die, I would have bought it in a second.
You would have bought it. Yeah, you
But
would have bought it.
you know, not to be apparently.
I did a again, not to derail the whole conversation here, but it's kind of related. So Martin Popoff and I did a, I don't know if you saw it, we did a show on Martin Birch Productions, our favorite Martin
No,
Birch
I
production.
saw it, but I didn't get a chance to watch it yet.
And you know, we were both talking, you know, Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules both made our lists, and I was talking about how if you listen to Never Say Die and then listen to Heaven and Hell, listen to them back to back from a production standpoint, it doesn't even sound like the same band.
Oh, sounds like two completely different. If you played it for someone who did not know the history, they would think they're two totally different bands.
Yeah, right. I mean,
Everything about it is completely different.
Tony's guitar sounds completely different. Everything about it is different. It's just
100%.
yeah, it's night and day. Absolutely night and
And
day.
I don't know if you guys went into it, but yeah, I always prefer the production on Mob
Oh yeah,
Rules
yeah, yeah.
over Live Evil. It's a much more dynamic sound. I think, and the band has always said that, because they had played, God, a year's worth of gigs together at that point. They just meshed together so much better.
It's the wet Martin Birch production
Yeah.
as opposed to the drier sound of Evan and Hell.
Yes.
So
100%.
I played it to Martin. I said the production of Mob Rule sounds like so when Tony goes to hit that big opening chord of Sign of the Southern Cross, sweat just flies off his guitar and hits the wall and just down. That's the way that album sounds. It's totally wet, sweaty metal, you know, as opposed to the more dry kind
Yeah.
of sound of Heaven and Hell. But they're
That's
both great.
that's a
They're just different.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, but that's a perfect description.
So. Well, there you have it, folks. Let us know down in the comments below any Sabbath shows, could be really famous ones or not, that you would have loved to have seen if you could go back in your time machine and partake in. Put them in the comments below. And we'll see you soon here with more Sabbath stuff. Tune in Monday night. We got the Hudson Valley Squares coming back Monday night. We're going to be talking all about Combat Records for all of you more underground 80s underground metal fans. We're going to talk about the great label Combat and a lot of the major artists and albums that appeared on that label, as well as some of our favorite records that came out on Combat Records. So that's all coming up on Monday. And visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube all together, all the
All the
damn
damn
time.
time.
Also coming up on the channel this weekend, let's see, starting tomorrow, we got the Professor's Picks tomorrow. We've got 4 Fusion Friday tomorrow. This is Friday night. We've got on Saturday, we've got the UK Connection. And on Sunday, 2 Ranking the Album shows. One of Coney Hatch, the great Canadian hard rock and metal band. And then one on the band Icon, the very cool US hard rock and metal band from the 80s. So 2 ranking shows this weekend. Hudson Valley Squares on Monday. We'll see you soon. For Chris Alo, I am Pete Pardo. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. Take care. Bye bye.